One of our viewers dropped this fascinating design challenge into the comments. An octagon core, 2 rectangular wings, a south-facing courtyard, and a question about whether a north side vent can pull off perfect natural airflow. Today, we are actually sketching this out, testing the aerodynamics of geometric homes, and seeing if this layout is a brilliant passive solar masterpiece or an HVAC nightmare. Because this is not a theoretical exercise. In 2026, people are building exactly this kind of unconventional layout. And the decisions you make about wing placement, window height, and orientation can either cut your cooling bills dramatically or saddle you with an energy problem that runs every single summer for the life of the home. So we're going to go deep today. We will analyze the layout geometry, walk through the airflow science face by face, price it out with real 2026 numbers, and I will tell you the 2 configurations that look great on paper but fall apart the moment wind and heat get involved. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to reveal the window placement strategy that most architects skip in Octagon Plus wing designs. It costs nothing extra to build, but skipping it means your HVAC works overtime every summer for decades. But before we get into it, real quick, if you're new here, this channel is all about affordable, honest, research-backed content on alternative housing. No fluff, no paid placements, just the real numbers and real design logic. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown like this one. And if you know someone planning a non-traditional build, share this video with them right now. It might completely change their approach. Okay, let's get into it. Before we talk about wings, let us make sure we are all on the same page about what an octagon home actually is. The concept is not new. It was popularized all the way back in the 1850s by a man named Orson Squire Fowler. Fowler was not an architect. He was a phrenologist and lifestyle pundit. But he wrote an enormously influential book arguing that 8-sided homes were cheaper to build, easier to heat, and cooler in summer. And he was not entirely wrong. Here is the geometry that makes octagon homes so interesting. An octagon encloses significantly more floor space than a square home with the same perimeter. To be precise, an octagon is roughly 7 to 8% more efficient than a square, and about 15 to 18% more efficient than a rectangle with a typical 2:1 aspect ratio. When you compare it to the irregular L-shaped and T-shaped suburban footprints that most homes actually use, the real-world advantage lands closer to 20% more enclosed area for the same perimeter of the exterior wall. You're getting more home for the same wall material. A circle is technically even more efficient, but try framing a circle. Try hanging a door on a curved wall. Try putting your couch in a round room. Octagons give you most of the geometric efficiency of a circle with the practical benefit of straight walls. Today, companies like Topsider Homes, which has been building octagon designs since the late 1960s, offer floor plans ranging from compact 600 square foot single bedroom units all the way up to 1,975 square foot 4-bedroom layouts. Their designs can be built on slab, crawl space, piling foundations, or pedestal systems, and they ship worldwide. In 2026, their post and beam pedestal systems are actually seeing a resurgence because stricter floodplain building codes in coastal regions are pushing builders toward elevated foundations. The 8 sides also mean you have 8 faces to work with for windows, doors, and solar orientation. That is a designer's dream, but it comes with real challenges we will get into. So if octagon homes are already efficient and beautiful, why would you add wings? The pure octagon has one core limitation. It concentrates everything into one central shape. That works brilliantly for a single person, a couple, or even a small family. But what about multi-generational living? What about a home office that needs genuine acoustic separation? What about a guest suite that does not require your visitors to walk past your bedroom at midnight? Wings solve the zoning problem. When you attach a rectangular wing to 1 or 2 faces of the octagon, you can create a private bedroom wing that projects outward from the main living core, a dedicated workspace or studio wing with its own entrance, a garage or utility wing that does not eat into the beauty of the central living space, or a guest wing or in-law suite with total privacy from the primary residence. Historically, this is exactly what happened with real octagon homes. Records show that the Octagon House in Barrington, Illinois had 2 separate additions built, a kitchen addition before 1920 and a bedroom extension added in 1951. The David Van Gelder Octagon house had a kitchen wing added in the mid-1870s. People figured out pretty quickly that the pure octagon was a stunning center, but a functional wing completed the picture. In 2026, modern designers are taking that same idea and running with it using contemporary materials, prefab construction, and passive design strategies. Configuration 1. The single rear wing. This is the most common approach and the easiest to build. You attach one rectangular wing to the back face of the octagon. The octagon core holds your main living, dining, and kitchen spaces. The wing becomes the private bedroom and bathroom zone. You get clear public-private separation without any complicated structural gymnastics. From an airflow standpoint, a single rear wing is excellent. Wind enters the octagon's front-facing windows and travels diagonally through the central space before being channeled into the wing. Cross-ventilation is strong because the wing extends the airflow path, creating a longer pressure gradient. Air does not get trapped. Framing this is also the most straightforward. The connection point between the octagon wall and the rectangular wing involves a non-90-degree junction, but experienced framers handle this routinely. The wall angles sit at 135 degrees. One thing to be aware of in 2026, drywall finishing at these angles still requires more labor hours than standard 90-degree corners, and your contractor will need flexible no-bead tape rather than standard corner bead. Budget for it. Configuration 2. Opposing dual wings. Here you attach two wings on directly opposite faces of the octagon, one on each side. Think of the octagon as the hub and the wings as spokes pointing in opposite directions. This layout is ideal for a multi-generational setup. One wing becomes the primary suite. The opposite wing becomes the in-law suite or guest quarters. The octagon core is the shared gathering space, living room, dining, kitchen. Each household has genuine privacy while sharing the communal heart of the home. Airflow in this configuration is where things get genuinely impressive. Because the wings are on opposing sides, you create a beautifully effective cross-ventilation channel. Wind enters through the windows on the windward wing, passes through the octagon core, and exits through the leeward wing. The airflow path is essentially a straight line through the entire length of the structure. This naturally leverages what building science calls cross-ventilation. Effective cross-ventilation can keep indoor air temperatures approximately 1.5 degrees Celsius, about 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, below outdoor air temperatures based on thermometer readings. But here is something worth knowing. In high-mass octagon homes, the perceived cooling effect from the combination of wind chill on skin and continuous air exchange can make the interior feel 6 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than a stagnant conventional box, even when the actual thermometer difference is only 3 degrees. That is a meaningful comfort advantage. The caution here is budget. Two wings mean two roof lines, two additional foundation sections, and more linear footage of the exterior wall. Cost setup. Configuration 3. The offset wing. This is the most visually dramatic option, and the one that shows up in high-end custom designs. Instead of attaching the wing to the back center face, you attach it to one of the angled side faces of the octagon. Because the octagon side faces are already angled at 135 degrees, the wing naturally projects outward at an angle relative to the main axis of the home. From above, the floor plan looks almost like a boomerang. This serves two practical purposes. First, the angled wing can be oriented to capture prevailing winds from a direction that would not be accessible to a standard rectangular home on the same lot. Second, it creates natural privacy screening. The wing wraps around to partially shelter a courtyard or garden zone between itself and the octagon core. And in 2026, there is a third benefit worth noting. The multifaceted roof of the octagon, combined with an angled wing, gives you multiple roof faces pointing towards southeast, south, and southwest. That means you can distribute smaller solar arrays across several facets, rather than relying on one large south-facing panel array. The result is a more consistent power generation curve throughout the day, with the southeast faces performing in morning hours and the southwest faces picking up afternoon sun. From an airflow standpoint, the offset wing excels at catching winds from multiple directions. An offset wing essentially gives you two different orientations in one structure. The challenge is complexity. This configuration requires the most careful planning, the most experienced framing crew, and the highest structural engineering investment. It is not a beginner build. Now let us apply this directly to the design our viewer described. An octagon core, 2 rectangular wings, a south-facing courtyard, and a north side exhaust vent. This is actually a very smart passive layout. Here's why. Natural ventilation works on pressure differentials. When wind hits the windward side of your home, it creates positive pressure. Air wants to push in. On the leeward side, negative pressure develops. Air wants to pull out. Windows and openings on both sides allow a continuous flow of fresh air through the interior. For this to work well, building scientists recommend keeping the building depth, the distance from windward opening to leeward opening, to under 45 feet. Beyond that, the pressure gradient weakens and airflow through the center of the home drops significantly. In the viewer's layout, here's what the airflow story looks like. The south-facing courtyard is a passive solar collector. During the day, the courtyard surface absorbs heat and warms the air directly adjacent to the home's south-facing windows and walls. That warm air wants to rise. The north side vent is the exhaust point. Warm air that rises through the octagon core and moves toward the north side is drawn out through the vent by negative pressure. The north side is the leeward side in most US and European climates, where prevailing winds come from the south or southwest. The 2 wings, if positioned on the east and west faces of the octagon, act as thermal buffers. In the morning, the east wing is in sun and the west wing is in shade. In the afternoon, that reverses. The temperature differential between the shaded and sunlit wings actually creates its own localized pressure gradient that helps pull air through the octagon core throughout the day. The net result: even on calm days with no significant wind, the south courtyard heats up, warm air rises through the center of the octagon, and the north vent creates a continuous draft. This is called the stack effect, and this layout is almost purpose-designed to exploit it. There's one honest caveat. For the north vent to pull effectively, it needs to be positioned high on the north wall, near the ceiling or roof line, and it needs sufficient opening area. A vent that is too small creates a bottleneck. A useful rule of thumb is that your exhaust opening area should be at least equal to your inlet opening area, and ideally 10 to 20% larger to encourage outflow. So is this layout a brilliant passive solar masterpiece or an HVAC nightmare? Based on the geometry, it is closer to the masterpiece end. Provided the wing depths stay under 25 feet, the north vent is sized properly, and the south courtyard is treated as an active thermal asset rather than just a landscaping feature. Let me give you a practical room-by-room layout for the dual wing configuration our viewer described, because this is the one with the most moving parts. The octagon core works best with an open plan. The 8 walls naturally define zones without requiring interior partitions. Here is how the faces break down in a functional layout. Faces 1 and 2, south facing toward the courtyard. These become your primary view windows and your main connection to the courtyard. In winter, south-facing glass is your best passive solar heat gain. In summer, a deep roof overhang or adjustable shading over these windows protects you from overheating. Get the overhang depth right for your latitude, and these south windows become a climate control system built into the architecture. Faces 3 and 4, southeast and southwest. Your living and dining zones live here. The angled walls at 135 degrees mean furniture naturally faces the center of the room rather than being pushed into a corner. Sofas and dining tables work better in octagon spaces than most people expect. And here's a bonus worth mentioning on camera. The 135-degree kitchen corners that plague rectangular homes, those awkward blind cabinet corners where things go to die, are virtually eliminated in an octagon kitchen. The angles create wide, shallow, easy-access cabinetry. Lazy Susans become optional rather than mandatory. Faces 5 and 6, east and west. These are your connection points to the 2 wings. The doorways into each wing sit symmetrically on opposite faces, creating a clean visual axis from one wing entrance through the octagon core to the other. Faces 7 and 8, north-facing. This is where your north vent and utility connections live. Keep this wall service-oriented. The north face gets the least desirable light, so use it for bathrooms, storage, mechanical space, or your laundry closet. The east wing. This becomes your primary bedroom suite. Orient the wing so its long axis aligns with the east-west wind path if your prevailing winds come from the west. Bedrooms at the far end, bathroom in the middle, a small private sitting area near the octagon connection. Keep it under 25 feet deep. The west wing. This is your guest suite, home office, or in-law quarters. Same depth rule applies. If you are building for multi-generational use, this wing can have its own exterior entrance from the courtyard side without any traffic through the main octagon living space. Keep the wing corridors open or use partial walls rather than closed hallways. Closed corridors are dead air zones. A partial wall or frosted glass panel maintains privacy while keeping airflow alive through the full depth of each wing. Let's talk about real numbers. According to 2026 build cost data from Angie and Industry Analysis, standard residential construction in the U.S. currently averages between $150 and $210 per square foot for conventional box-style builds. Custom and architecturally complex homes push toward $200 to $400 per square foot, depending on finishes and location. An octagon home carries what builders call a complexity premium. The 135-degree framing, custom cabinetry, and complex roofline add roughly 15 to 20% above what you would pay for a comparable square footage conventional build. That puts octagon construction squarely in the $200 to $325 per square foot range for a quality build in 2026. Topsider Homes, one of the few dedicated octagon home manufacturers with decades of experience, offers prefab octagon floor plans from 600 square feet up to nearly 2,000 square feet. Costs vary based on foundation type, site conditions, and finish level, and they offer free estimates customized to your zip code, which is the honest way to budget because regional labor costs vary enormously. Their pedestal systems tend to run below comparable custom stick-built homes. Their two-story and patio home designs are usually competitive with conventional construction. For planning purposes, a reasonable 2026 estimate for the dual-wing layout our viewer described looks something like this. A 1,200 square foot octagon core with mid-grade finishes, roughly $240,000 to $390,000 before land. Add two wings at 400 square feet each, totaling 800 square feet of wing space, at approximately $160,000 to $260,000. Total for a well-built 2,000 square foot dual-wing octagon home, roughly $400,000 to $650,000, depending on location, foundation, and finishes. That is not a tiny home price. But when you factor in the airflow benefits, this layout can meaningfully reduce or eliminate active cooling loads in temperate climates, and the layout efficiency that makes 2,000 square feet feel like a much larger conventional home. The value proposition becomes clearer. There's also the hidden cost category nobody budgets for with unusual geometry, specialty trades. Not every framing crew, roofing contractor, or cabinet maker has experience with 135-degree wall angles. Getting quotes from multiple contractors and finding someone who has actually worked on octagon or hexagon geometry before will save you significant money and frustration. One legitimate energy concern raised by architectural analysis is that complex roof lines and wall junctions make continuous insulation harder to achieve. A poorly sealed octagon-to-wing roof junction can leak conditioned air and drive up operating costs significantly. And in 2026, many building codes now require self-adhering modified bitumen, ice and water shield membrane, over the entire junction area where an octagon wall meets a wing roof, not just in the valley itself. This is a small but mandatory cost that your contractor should be accounting for. The solution for all of this is to require blower door testing during construction and to mandate that every non-standard junction is sealed before insulation is installed. Do not skip that step. I promised you I will be honest about what does not work. Here are two configurations that look great on a napkin, but create real problems in practice. Problem configuration 1, the 3-wing pinwheel. It sounds amazing. 3 wings radiating off the octagon on alternating faces, each pointing a different direction. The floor plan looks like a propeller. The problem is that 3 wings on alternating faces creates mutual shadowing and wind blocking. Each wing partially blocks natural ventilation from reaching the adjacent wing. You end up with 2 wings that ventilate well and one that essentially becomes a dead zone. 3 separate roof lines connecting to the octagon core also create 3 high-risk moisture penetration points. Every roof valley where a wing meets the octagon is a potential water intrusion zone. And with the 2026 code requirement for full modified bitumen coverage at every junction, managing 3 of these simultaneously drives up both construction cost and long-term maintenance considerably. Unless you have an exceptional architect and an unlimited budget for custom waterproofing and ongoing maintenance, skip the 3-wing pinwheel. Problem configuration 2, the deep narrow wing. This one gets people because it looks efficient on paper. A long, narrow wing extending off the octagon. Long wings feel like you're getting a lot of room for the money. The reality is that a wing deeper than about 30 feet and narrower than 12 feet creates serious airflow problems. Cross ventilation requires windows on at least 2 facing sides. In a very narrow, deep wing, even if you put windows at both ends, the air has to travel too far through a constricted space. The ventilation effectiveness drops off dramatically. Beyond airflow, deep narrow wings have a psychological problem. They feel like hallways. The proportions of a functional living space need width. A wing that is 35 feet deep and only 10 feet wide is essentially a long corridor with rooms attached to the walls. It does not feel like a home. If you need more square footage in your wing, go wider, not deeper. A 20-foot wide by 20-foot deep wing gives you the same 400 square feet as a 10 by 40 layout, but with dramatically better light, airflow, and livability. And here's what I promised you at the beginning. The detail that most architects overlook in octagon plus wing designs. In a standard rectangular home, you orient windows primarily on the north and south walls to manage solar gain and cross ventilation. That logic makes sense for a box. But in an Octagon Center Home with wings, you have 8 differently angled exterior faces plus the wing exposures. The opportunity is to think of your windows as a system, not as individual features. Here is the principle. On the windward side of the octagon, the faces that face your prevailing wind, place your primary intake windows low on the wall between 2 and 4 feet off the floor. Low intakes pull cool air from the shaded exterior near the ground level. On the leeward faces and on the upper section of every wing, place your exhaust windows high on the wall, near the ceiling line. Hot air rises. Give it an exit. This is the stack effect in action. Even on still summer days with no wind at all, warm air rises through the octagon core and exits through high windows in the upper wall. Cool air is drawn in through the low windward windows to replace it. In the wing specifically, the critical move is this. Place a low window on the wall closest to the octagon, the connection into the wing, and a high window on the far end wall. Air enters cool at the connection point, travels the length of the wing, warms slightly, and exits high at the far end. That is a complete natural ventilation circuit through a closed wing, running entirely on physics. For the viewer-specific layout with a north side vent, this same principle applies at the macro scale. The south courtyard heats air at low elevation. The heated air rises through the octagon core. The north vent positioned high on the north wall draws it out through negative pressure. Every window at the south and east and west faces should have lower sill heights on the windward side and higher transom windows or clear-story openings on the leeward side to support this full building stack circuit. This strategy was documented by Hutter Architects in their 2025 natural ventilation study as one of the foundational principles of passive cooling. Vertical separation between air inlets and outlets keeps buildings comfortable even without mechanical cooling in many climates. The cost to execute this is essentially zero. It is a design decision, not an additional material cost. You are placing the same windows at different heights, but skipping it means your HVAC system has to compensate every single summer for the life of the home. The payback on getting this right is permanent. Let me give you a clear-eyed summary of who this build is right for and who it is not. An Octagon Center Home with wings is a great fit if you want a home that performs as an architectural statement and as a passive climate machine. It is right for multi-generational families who need genuine privacy zones within a shared home. It is right for people building on scenic lots where panoramic views matter. It is right for anyone willing to invest in a longer planning phase and work with a contractor who understands non-standard geometry. It is not the right build if you're on a tight timeline, working with a beginner contractor, or need to minimize every dollar of construction cost. The angled framing, drywall finishing labor, custom cabinetry, and complex roofline will cost 15 to 20% more than a comparable rectangular build. The 2026 national average of $150 to $210 per square foot for standard homes is a floor, not a ceiling, for this design type. It is also not the right build if you're planning to sell quickly. Octagon homes have a smaller buyer pool than conventional designs. They appeal strongly to a specific kind of buyer, and that buyer will love them. But on the open market, an unusual floor plan can extend your days on market compared to a traditional layout. But if you're building your forever home, or a long-term vacation rental in a scenic location, or a multi-generational compound that needs to function beautifully for decades, this is a design worth taking seriously. Let's bring it home. Here is what we covered today. The viewer's challenge: an octagon core, 2 wings, a south courtyard, and a north vent, is actually a very well-considered passive solar layout. The south courtyard acts as a thermal engine. The north vent creates the exhaust point. The dual wings, positioned on opposing faces, create a full cross-ventilation channel through the entire structure. Executed correctly, this home can run with minimal active cooling in temperate and mild climates. The 3 wing configurations at work are the single rear wing for clean public-private separation, opposing dual wings for multi-generational layouts with built-in cross-ventilation, and the offset angled wing for capturing multiple wind directions and distributing solar arrays across several roof facets. The 2 configurations to avoid are the 3-wing pinwheel, which creates mutual wind blocking and 3 high-risk mandatory waterproofing junction points, and the deep narrow wing, which becomes a dead air corridor regardless of how well you design everything else. The window placement strategy: low intake windows on windward faces, high exhaust windows on leeward walls, and at the far end of every wing. Stack effect plus cross-ventilation working together. Zero extra cost, permanent comfort, and energy savings. Build costs in 2026 for a custom Octagon Plus dual wing home sit in the $200 to $325 per square foot range, putting a 2,000 square foot layout somewhere between $400,000 and $650,000 before land, depending on location and finishes. That is the honest picture. If you found this video useful, hit the like button right now. It tells YouTube this content is worth putting in front of more people making real housing decisions. Subscribe if you have not already. New videos drop every week on alternative housing, DIY builds, and the real numbers behind designs that actually work. And in the comments below, tell me, would you build this layout? Would you go with the dual opposing wings or the offset wing? And if you've got a design challenge of your own, drop in the comments. The next video topic might be yours. I will see you in the next one.